In this video, I'm going to share how you can take something that is bound for the garbage and make it into something amazing. Piece was gifted to me. It was either me or the garbage. If you look closely on the top, there was a lot of damage. First thing I did was sand the top. There was multiple big scratches and some holes where it needed to be filled. So I used a compound of JB Weld, which is like a hardening compound, and sanded it smooth once it dried. Now for the fun part, time to get painting. DIY paint is 100% natural and will bond with any surface. So no sanding on this piece except to smooth out the top, and no priming needed. I am starting with a thin coat of crinoline. When it dries, it has a soft buttery yellow look. Because DIY is so highly pigmented, all it took was 2 coats of the crinoline and this desk was covered. First coat dried really well, time for the second coat. I like to always use the continuous mister before I go in with my second coat. I am painting over the hardware. I can't really decide if sometimes I'm just too lazy to remove it or I really like the way it looks. I'm always happy with the outcome, so I guess either way, lazy is fine as long as it turns out pretty. Make sure you have a nice smooth finish on your piece. I'm going to add a transfer, so I want to make sure it's extra smooth. I like to use a piece of 320 grit sandpaper to start. It really smooths out the paint. Try not to look at the weird face that you're making while you're doing this. There's nothing like videotaping yourself to really humble you. For the legs, I used a combination of liquid sunshine, the crinoline, and cake batter. So to blend paint, overlap the colors while they're still wet and use a third what I call neutral brush to blend. This is best done when you have a base coat of a neutral color. You can use a spray bottle to blend the colors. It's really fun to blend paint with DIY. No latex or acrylic makes it super easy, and I highly recommend you try this. Okay, so this is smooth and ready to go. I'm gonna use this Iron Orchid Designs Transfer Midnight Garden. It's just gorgeous. It's 4 sheets of the most beautiful floral scenes. So I'm going to go through the pages and kind of figure out what's going to look good. I'm going to put it here, on this drawer, and over here. So it's going to hide, hopefully, a lot of those cosmetic flaws. So I tore out the pages and I'm looking at the scene that I want. I'm figuring out what will fit on the drawer, and then I will tape it in place and cut. Now that I have the place where I want it, I'm going to line those grid lines up with my drawer and use some painter's tape to keep it in place. Make sure that you have that nonstick paper attached to it while you're trying to put it in place. Then you can tape it and remove the backing, which will then expose the sticky side to your painted piece. So make sure you have it where you want it before you pull that sheet out. Once you pull that backing paper out, use your hand to just smooth it over the piece and get it ready to burnish with the enclosed burnishing stick. I like to start from one end, working my way towards another. You can start to see that the transfer is sticking when you can see it basically sticking to your piece, and the see-through paper becomes kind of translucent and no longer opaque. So with pieces that are really like dense pictures, you will have a much easier time. If you pull up and you find that some of the transfer is still stuck to the paper, just lay it down and it will gently come off. Don't rush the process and you will be rewarded with a beautiful finished piece with artwork that you can take credit for, that you just basically burnished on. I repeated the same process on the other drawer using another sheet of these beautiful burgundy and yellow colors that's going to go perfect with what I have planned for the rest of the desk. Because I'm a maximizer and all of the IOD transfers are so gorgeous, I didn't want to leave the front of this unadorned. So I am cutting little pieces from what I have left to tie in both sides, and then I'm going to do the side of this desk as well. I really like overlapping some of the transfers. You can create these beautiful scenes with the leaves, and if you don't like the way something looks, it's really easy to correct by just overlapping with another piece. And for my next trick, thought I could stain the top, but it was beyond repair, so I had to go to step 2. Used a combination of cherry picked and marquee. Together they will make this beautiful burgundy color. Give them a good shake. You're not going to need a lot of paint because this is just going on the top, but I want to mix it really well. I mixed equal parts of cherry picked and marquee and then stir really well to make this beautiful deep burgundy color. The wood on the top is pretty dry, so I spritzed it with my continuous mister and the paint just rolls right on. You can see how the color deepens as it dries. Long overlapping strokes. So this is all finished. I have to put the handles back on still. Now I'm gonna sand the top. I want to get it really smooth, but I need to do something before that, because if I sand this with all this glorious pigment in it, it's going to get into the paint here. When you sand DIY paint, it comes off in a really fine powder. I want to make sure this is all sealed before I start that. I gotta wait for the wax to dry and then I'll wipe it off. I prefer clear wax because I just love the buttery soft finish. Sometimes I'll use Big Top. I have links to all those products if you want to grab some and finish the project that you've been waiting for. I'll have that in my profile. DIY clear wax is 100% natural. It absorbs really nicely into DIY paint. Don't be alarmed if your paint starts to look translucent when you apply the wax. We call this the freak out factor. It will be penetrating all the layers and it will look weird, but when it dries and it's ready to buff, it will look just like you had painted it, and it's gonna be amazing. Dirty, dark, decrepit. These are good things. I am gonna use just a little bit of this dark wax. I want it to have a little bit of an aged look. So as you can see, you can put it on when the wax is cured and dried, or you can put it on when it's still wet. I'm putting the dark wax just in the areas where, you know, fingers may have touched it over the years, so probably not in the center, along the edges of the drawers. Now, I am keeping a heavy-duty shop towel nearby, and I'm going to just wipe back as I go. Now, if you find that you have put way too much on, not a problem. Just use your clear wax to go over it, and it will act as an eraser and pick up any extra dark wax that you don't want. Don't go too heavy with the dark wax. It's really just meant to enhance and age. So if you can see, I'm basically outlining this so it'll look natural where someone's fingers have touched it over the year. Let's smooth out that top using the 320 grit sandpaper. Lightly go over it. I like to do several passes until the top feels really smooth. DIY paint can be made literally as smooth as porcelain. There is porcelain in the clay, and the more that you lightly sand it, the paint will actually start to shine. It's amazing. There will be a lot of dust on this, so be sure to use a shop towel or a rag to wipe it all off. Use several passes until it comes up clean. I used a clear wax first on this. Now I'm applying black wax. I really like the way black wax will look over this deep color, and it's going to really make it look like a deep mahogany. It's finished. I am so happy with the way it turned out. I hope I inspired you to take a look at that next piece of junk that you might be tempted to pass up. It really is worth it to transform your old stuff into something gorgeous with DIY paint. If you want to grab some supplies, I have them in the links. If you like this video, please subscribe and follow along. It helps other people see this content and hopefully make over their junk.